move society forward.
Nation needs socially and economically center right. You think there should be like
No,
more
I don't
like
know if
there should be a bigger divide between wealthy and poor. It's not big enough. There should
I'm
be less
saying
equality.
I'm saying that the evidence that
Uh-huh.
is apparent to me on the outcomes of various societal interactions and various policy decision making, I think that the policy decision making that right now happens to be center right seems to align most accurately with the scientific findings of how we interact as social agents.
I believe the mess we're in right now is because of center right ideological policies, and we need
No,
to
no, no,
counter that
no,
by going
no,
center left.
no, so you are mistaking a psychological preference with a
Nope.
specific policy. So I have no doubt that you're referring to what was a center-right position and policy that you have identified as pathological and to societal detriment. I've got no doubt about that. What I have doubt about is if that is the current center right, because the way I see political spectrums, I see it shifting. I just see the same static human consciousness dealing with a shifting reality. And the description of left and right is just basically how we interact with that reality in terms of our psychological way of negotiating that.
A lot of
I
social
don't think you
and
get
class
me.
policies of that's catered toward more toward the wealthy. What all this pushback is about, and
No, no, but there's always been
because of that,
pushback
there,
from the
you're
wealthy,
getting
right?
a lot of protests and anger about wanting to move to the
Yeah,
left.
but that's because the right creates hierarchies, and when those hierarchies are stratified, the left comes and demolishes them, and we set up a new hierarchy, right? I think the
And that's
specific
what's
reason.
happening right now. The left is
Well,
pushing
no,
forward.
this is where I think maybe there's room for disagreement here, because what you see as a repeating pattern of history of the left dismantling that hierarchy, I see a very unique and different hierarchy that has never existed in human history before. I see a hierarchy predicated on freedoms that has never existed before. And what my understanding of human conflict and how it arises from a hierarchical perspective is when those hierarchies become stratified, as is the case with monarchies and dictatorships, where the social stratification there's no movement between the classes. So there's no where you're born is where you're born. You will never go up and you'll never go down. When you have that stratified social hierarchy, then you get violent revolution. Then you get wars. You get internal conflict, and you get an overthrow of the stratified hierarchy.
Yep.
But very interestingly, in modern times, with free hierarchies, with free flow in the hierarchy, it seems to diffuse that build up that leads to civil unrest. And when you see the world as the too right leaning and the left is coming out to crush that, I don't think the impetus is enough because you have free flow among the hierarchy.
The
Yeah,
left is
what I
pushing
see,
back. It's
what I see
diversifying.
is maybe.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. What I see is the argument of men, whether you're left or right, right? And you want to say, well, in America, the left is pushing. Well, it's because we have a system where the left can rule for a little bit, but it doesn't mean the right doesn't have a voice. You still can't just push through anything you want. See, what you're finding is a bunch of people who might have left leaning ideas or right leaning ideas. They're coming together. And in the middle where the rub is where the solutions come out. And so more of those might look left leaning, but really they do have a right side spin on it that comes to rights and freedoms and things like that. And it's going to be consistent throughout time. We need more opposition. Absolutely need more opposition. We need right side people, left side people. Doesn't really matter. And I'm the same way with deniability. I'm kind of apolitical. I go with the best decision at the time. I could give a fuck what camp it came out of, but what I want to hear is another camp come up and challenge it with good reasons so that the consequences are minimalized. Or maybe it shouldn't be, a different solution should be put forth. And that's what we're looking, that's what we're seeing. It doesn't matter what party it lies on, it really doesn't. What matters is it's a good idea and a good solution.
That's why I believe the left is right with the equality of opportunity, socially and economically, and it's it's pushing forward change.
The Republicans think like the '60s liberals. Like, you do know that, right? Like, a lot of what the '60s liberals were saying is kind of like what the Republican movement is saying nowadays, and the liberals are acting like a bunch of fucking Republicans in the '70s. I mean, you're getting people from all over the spectrum here, and the parties are constantly shifting agendas on how to do stuff. That's just noise.
I understand.
Purely noise.
Based on how things are now, how society is now, you have to figure out where's the center of that and what is the left and what is the right, because it changes over time.
Yeah, well, not really, because there's a current failing of the psychological left, as I described them, in the sense that it's the responsibility of the psychological left to move society forward, and it's the responsibility of the psychological right to
step on the brakes,
maintain society and like build it up. Right now, what we saw in the 1960s and from the 1920s all the way up to the 1970s was a tremendous effort from the psychological left to move us in a positive direction forward. And then the right realized that, okay, this is a good new hierarchy to like support, and they took it over and started building it and constructing society out of it, right? Now, the current failing of the left is it's no longer cautiously moving us forward. It's no longer coming up with new ideas. It's regressing. It's reverting to ideas that were defeated many years ago, many decades ago. It's not offering.
No, it's not.
In the civil rights movement, they were offering new stuff. They were offering new arguments on why all men and women should receive equal rights. These were new things. They were well argued for, and we implemented them. The new things that the left is currently arguing for, they're not as based in sound reasoning and evidence finding as the left of the 1960s. And in my opinion, the left is failing in its psychological duty to push society forward by regressing so poorly.
No, it's progressing. Separation of business and state, diversifying is good for the country. And people don't like that, because that's what the whole globalism thing is about, because people are being more connected, and being more connected is better. The world being globalization is better.
So Nivik, the arguments of separation of state and business was the arguments of the 1960s left. It is now the arguments of the modern right to separate business from state. It is the current arguments of the modern left to bring more business and state together, more government regulation, more lobbying. This is the preferred solution of the current left. That is why it is regressive instead of progressive. You need to update your
regulation. Isn't being pro-business.
No, separation of business and state requires an absence of interaction, just like separation of religion and state, right? State doesn't govern religion, religion doesn't govern state.
The big money donors are the Republicans.
If you want separation of business and state, you need to get the state out of business and the business out of state. And the way you do that is by removing regulations. That would be progressive, but that's not what the current left is arguing for. They're arguing for more regulation, more interaction between business and governments, less separation of business and governments.
I would argue that
you have to have regulations and not step on people. You can't step on people.
You gotta have you got to have regulation. Like you can't just have a company go off and say, well, we bought the land, we can do whatever we want. And then they start to destroy the land in a way that affects life around it, people around it, businesses around it, so on and so on. Who's going to make people pay for that when there is nobody, right, other than longevity of generations or environmental impacts, things like that. Like we have to have some sort of regulation through an agency that manages those things.
You would need to demonstrate to me that these regulations you are holding on to actually do what they're intended to. Because we've got mining regulations and financial regulations in South Africa. We've got heavy environmental impact assessments that require billions of dollars to be set aside for land restitution once mining operations are complete.
The right wants regulations now because tech giants are targeting them.
Hold on. But what's happened in South Africa of recent, because many of our large mines have come to the end of their lifespan, is instead of using the billions of dollars that were set aside for land restitution, literally 6 to 18 months before coming to the end of their life cycle and having to spend this money, completely abusing financial regulations and bankruptcy laws, they put these companies into liquidation. And they managed to obfuscate that and create liabilities that these billions are paid out to, and these mines are left abandoned and non-restituted. So, I mean,
be careful what you wish
I'm
for.
with you. I want government regulation to work. I would really love it if it did, but it just doesn't.
And be careful what you wish for because it
just needs to be smarter.
Be careful what you wish for because it's shifting now because the Alisons and the Cokes are dying out now. The money was on the right. Now it's shifting to the left. And now the right's starting to talk about regulation this and they're starting to sound more like the left now because they're being canceled and targeted. You know, so
for every billionaire on the right, there's a billionaire on the left. So don't act like there's not. It's not like a bunch of money is changing hands over to the left. For every billionaire that's on the right, there's a billionaire on the left. I guarantee it.
And for every billionaire on the left that is for socialist policies and all these things, I will show you a liar.
Probably. Well, not so much liar, but
to
almost
them,
like
it costs them money, but they're so rich that they don't care. So to wealthy people, they care about their reputation. Like it's quite incredible. Once you get to that level of wealth, they care more about how they perceive than actual wealth, right? And I would make the case that Bill Gates, he appears left and says yes, let's tax the rich and all that, because he's never going to use all the money he's earned in his lifetime. He's like giving it away in the boatloads now. So I think he just goes, yeah, I'm for the left because it's populist now, because he cares how he's perceived.
I'm just saying, like the right used to say that the businesses can do what they want, and you know, it's they have the right to. And now they're complaining that no, they're imposing on us now, and they're we need regulations.
I don't know from the people that I work with in the financial district and deniability, most people don't give a shit about the political standing about where they're at, right, when it comes to you being wealthy. Now, you do have those individuals who are very wealthy, who are in the spotlight. Yeah, they probably give a shit about how they act and how they look. But let's be honest. There are a majority of millionaires and billionaires who are not in the public spotlight. They don't care to be in the public spotlight, and they can give two fucks about what political party does this political blah blah blah, because they're working in 7 different countries and they're trying to figure out all these next moves which are going to benefit them and what they're doing. You have those people who are utopianistic and they want to build the perfect society, so they devote a lot of funds to them, but only in ways that it makes them money too. So for me, it's just about people that realize that there's a bunch of stuff that is happening, right? Huge, massive plans that are happening, and nobody understands the consequences. This is revolutionary. Capitalism defines and paves the way, and then only until then we have people that we've elected, right, or people that have been appointed, or people that have taken over, or whatever it may be, follow behind and try to pick up the pieces and try to understand, and they try to control the movement at capitalism because they want to get ahead of the problems and the situations that are causing. And as capitalism grows and as it creates bigger and larger moves, it's going to affect billions of more lives. It's going to affect billions of more outcomes and billions of, square inches or whatever environmentally wise. This is going to be happening. So government is consistently trying to keep up. And unfortunately, deniability, what you're dealing with is a little bit of kind of elderly and Kafka-esque, which means a lot of bureaucracy in the middle that just kind of stalls it, right? So if we try to put a solution forward for what a company does, it's just not a good solution at the time, but it's what we had 20 fucking years ago, right? So it's just not good now, and that's what we're running into.
And these people on the right, they want a two-class crony monopoly system of
same people on the left, dude.
One poor, one wealthy.
They're just humans. They're just humans.
I mean, like,
Nivek, you're
just humans.
It's not a left or right thing. Like people.
It really isn't.
But Grim, you're missing one key thing in your analysis that you're just wrong on. Wealthy people know far more about politics and political movements and political power players than your average person, especially the multinational corporations.
I agree with you. Their information comes from the heart a lot of times,
Yeah, they are often very concerned with the political happenings of countries. Like, all politicians are in the game of trying to do what they want, but not pissing off business confidence. Once you piss off business confidence, you're fine.
Because politics can shut down their ideas, right? They can't control it, and some policy mover puts in blah 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 in so and so area, shuts down your venture, doesn't it? Their ideas, So yeah, they got to understand and keep their finger on the pulse. But you know what? They're gonna back whoever the fuck, their venture done because they think it's for the betterment of themselves and the betterment of society. That's how they truly feel.
I don't doubt that.
Conservatives are progressive. I mean, like you invest, you have a system that invests in people more. I mean, like if conservative mindset is like the horse and buggy industry, killing potential technological transportation innovation as a potential threat. That's what the right offers. It's anti-progressive.
No, Nivek, that's context, really. Right? That's an example where anti-progressive was wrong. It is not always the case that anti-progressive is wrong, and it's not always the case that progressive is right. And often, in actual fact, most of the time, progressive is wrong, and most of the time, conservative is correct.
America was built off of liberal social progressive ideology. Conservatism didn't do nothing.
New ideas, not all of them are worth going down. You can like the left generates ideas thousands at a time. If we went down all of them, we would fuck society royally, right? More often than not, it is the role of the conservatives to go, okay, from your 1,000 ideas, what's the one we're willing to add to the stack and cautiously move society forward?
If conservatism had its way, we'd still be in a medieval age. That's where we'd be right now.
No, that's wrong.
No, yes,
that's wrong.
If we
it didn't want no progress.
Hold on, Nevik, you keep on taking this to a political movement, and I keep on telling you what deniability and I are talking about is in the middle between the two politics, is in the rub. So if we lived in a progressive society, things would never stop changing. You'd have no ground for bearing. Your every decision would be a failure because there's a better answer tomorrow. I mean, we could advance society on scales and levels that you would never understand. But you know what? The speed of how we advance is a problem.
Listen, I agree with you.
It's going to create a lot of errors and a lot of issues.
If we can't
move conservatism, hold on. So conservatism are the brakes upon which progressivism, right, needs to react. Okay, sometimes we go slow, sometimes we go fast. To think that we never go anywhere is just a fallacy. We're always progressing, even on a conservative value basis. Only in the middle.
That's
of when and where we go and how fast we go is where the rub is.
Bingo. That's why there's a lot of that's why there's a lot of friction in society right now because the liberals are stepping on the gas and they're go warp factor 5 right now, and society's changing. There's a lot of diversification, and people are feeling uncomfortable about that, and they don't care. They want to go to the future. You know, they want to go. They want
consequences when you make decisions like that, like progressive decisions. There's consequences. Conservatism is understanding those consequences.
Ooh, not really.
How's that?
I mean, that's
how's there? How's that?
There's plenty of decisions
because we have to ask questions about why we're doing it.
Well, there's plenty of questions forward. Conservatives make that there are unintended consequences to. So I mean, that's like
also
to me, that's like
how are conservatives right and liberals are wrong?
That's not what we're saying.
They're both wrong and they're both right. What matters is
liberals are right.
In between.
Liberals are right.
No, they're not right.
They're not
I'm not biased towards liberals.
Not with everything. Just like liberals are not about everything.
If they were right, if conservatives are right, I would say it.
Conservatives are right. Liberals are right.
If they were right, I would say it.
Conservatives are also wrong.
They're both wrong.
Correct. It's not a political thing.
Nivik, is it
black and white?
Nivik, is it possible that you don't know what is right or wrong?
No.
It's not possible? Well, then you're a cynic. You're not a skeptic.
Ask me how's that? Ask me how.
No, just wait, Nivik. Just listen to my question. Is it possible that you know that you don't know what is right and what is wrong?
Well, I can say that in reverse. It's possible in reverse that who I'm talking to doesn't know either.
Huh?
Yeah. So what is right? Yeah, you're right. What is right and what is wrong, it comes from our own moral foundations. So if you're going to say the liberals are right,
I'm navigating myself.
Let's hear your. Don't go off into tangents, dude. If you're going to make the positive claim that the liberals are right, let's hear your justification.
Society leads unfair, socially and economically, to the right, and in inequality, and it needs to be counterbalanced to the left by investing in equality of opportunity, of utmost potential, in a hand up, not a hand out, in upward mobility, for a capitalist gain return, because every action there's an opposite reaction. That's where the balance would come. I understand that they're connected, and when you do something on one side, you're going to get a reaction that a counteraction that goes to the other. When you the counter reaction would be the reward gain of capitalist return on investment in the key areas of socially and economic investment of gaining wealth and having productivity and developing innovation by people's unique diversity.
Nivik, you said a whole pile of things. Now you want to say just one or maybe two things, and then let someone else respond. Go ahead, Scott.
I did want to say something to that, Nivik. So when you think of left and right, do you only think of terms in the politics in the United States? The reason I say this is because you could have a country like Norway that is far fundamentally, that's way more to the left than the United States, and even the people who are conservatives in that country are way to the left of what we would consider people conservatives in this country. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think you're making sort of nebulous determinations based off.
Well, we created democracy. We're the oldest democracy.
We did not create democracy.
No, we did not.
No.
Yeah, we're oldest.
Democritus.
Okay, I get it.
Athens created democracy.
I understand that. I knew you were going to go there.
The name was Democritus.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Sorry, it just cut out for a minute there. I'm talking about when America was formed is what I mean. And then a lot of other countries followed, as in the world oldest. I'm not going back centuries. I understand.
Well, I mean, but you do realize, like, when America put forth that form of government that was based off of what the Greeks did. So it's like when people talk about the United States being based off like Judeo-Christian values, it's not. The United States is based off
I know.
Greco-Roman values. So
Yeah.
like that's like when I think about it, like so to say like, oh, we just created democracy, that's where I'm coming from.
Let me give you an example, Nivik, about what I mean when I say there's rights and wrongs on both ends.
I understand where you're coming from.
There was a story, this morning I was reading. I follow John Stossel, who's a really good reporter, and he was actually doing a piece on an area that's actually really close to me, and I know this farmer guy, and I was really surprised to see him reported on by John. That was really cool. And basically, what happened was there's this rule in California where there's the labor unions, like these farmer labor unions, they can go onto any farm. It doesn't matter. They can step on private property and organize kind of like this union rally and try to get workers educated there about, union rights and about how you guys can fight for like proper wages and be treated properly, right? And this farmer's like, why the fuck at 4 a.m. are there a bunch of people on my property, like yelling at my employees and things like that as we're trying to get a harvest done? And it's causing a lot of issues. He's like, these people should be arrested. I can't get them off my land. So his lawyer gets involved in all this. He's got 450 people working for him. He pays his employees, his farm labor people, twice the minimum wage. He's known most of them through generations. His family has worked alongside these Mexican immigrants for quite some time. He knows how long they work. And he goes, this is fucking stupid. He goes, they could have sent out a fucking email or an app. And most of these people have cell phones. They're not retarded. They don't need somebody walking onto the property, which constitutes the law in the first place. They need to be educated of their rights. And he's like, this is bullshit. 20 people were considering joining a union, which isn't enough to unionize that area. 20 people out of 450 because they just wanted to work. They just want to get their shit done, which is fine. They didn't need some union group showing up and telling them to unionize and fight for worker rights. And this was a clear overstepping of, you have this strong right-leaning Republican business guy who's taking care of his employees, and you've got this left-leaning unionized workforce, obviously trespassing on his property, but legally they're allowed to be there, and yelling at his employees and causing a lot of frustrations and a lot of lost money. And even the employees just got really, really upset to where there's these videos coming out of them yelling at the union people, leave us the fuck alone. Like, we don't give a shit. Like, we're fine. We're okay. We know our rights. You have clearly examples of where the left just goes and oversteps its bounds, right? And you see this all the time, places like Portland or whatever, where the left is just getting out of their fucking mind on the social justice bullshit, and it's causing issues.
I think
that's a reaction to the right, though.
I think you're making sort of an equal kind of mistake there, Graham, though, because all of a sudden you're saying the left.
No. What I'm saying is that there's clearly the left is not right 100% of the time. There's just problems on both ends.
They're connected. What happens on the right happens to the left.
Because I hate the term, because when you say the right and the left, what does that fucking mean? Do you know how many people are in those fucking groups that are fucking totally different from each other? You could say people on the left, and you have such a wide range of people who would consider themselves on the left. Same thing on the right. So, I think we need to talk about things more in terms of hey, these people specific thing, as opposed to just saying the left and right.
Yeah, when you look at the actual research done on populations as to political perspectives, there seems to be this overwhelming bias towards the center, to the point where it almost looks like a bell curve distribution when you match a population up. And going back to when I was talking about being apolitical psychologically versus being political psychologically, I think that bell curve sort of matches out. I think that there are a minority on both tails of the bell curve that are highly ideological, and they come at it from an psychological perspective of their ideology is dominant and always right. And then you got the overwhelming majority of people in the middle that form part of the bell. There are somewhere center left to center right, and that just seems to be the way it plots out on graphs when you look at population level analysis.
And as we all know, what does the squeaky wheel get?
What's that?
What does the squeaky wheel get?
Yeah, the grease.
The grease. That's the one you pay attention to.
A lot of what
you pay attention to the one that's making the most noise. And that's like, sort of a, I don't know, fundamental problem with the way humans behave, I think.
It's quite interesting, that analogy, because that's obviously an American analogy, and your culture kind of got it going with the Industrial Revolution. But there's a similar saying in Japan: the nail that sticks out gets hammered in.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Or there's another one, the sunflower that's too tall gets cut. That's the same kind of thing. I just think the idea that, I guess the only reason I think that those ones are different, like the nail getting nailed in or the sunflower getting cut, it's more of like taking care of those problems and eliminating those problems, as opposed to the idea of the squeaky wheel getting, it's like we're paying attention to that, and that's it's more along the lines of like we're giving that the attention, as opposed to just taking care of it. You can come and hit a nail in like that, but squeaky wheel, you're like all of a sudden paying attention to it, like, oh, what's wrong with it? Could be going on. Like the amount of effort, time, and dedication put into it. I think you can see turn on any American nation, and that's the exact population that any news channel is branding to. They want people most active, the people who are the like keep coming back and watching every single day, where most Americans don't give a shit. Like they just want to go to work, do their job, get paid, go home, play their PlayStation. Something crazy happens on the news, you turn on the news. Most people do not sit and just watch TV news all day.
You're cutting out.
God damn it. Basically, just saying most Americans don't just watch TV news all day.
I don't think the left will go far communism, like people say. I don't even think it's promoting communism, to be honest.
No, not at all.
It's actually pro-capitalism. I don't think the right is capitalism. It pretends to be. I think it's more ideologically feudal. It's hegemonic, and they just act like they're capitalists, but they're really, because what the left is offering is capitalism. Because if you invest in people, socially and economically, you get a return, and you get competition, and then it spurs innovation. It was socialism that created capitalism by attacking the far right of serfdom. And I agree with you. I'm not biased towards one side or the other. I see them both connected. And what I'm saying is, like, doing one thing on the left is about getting a cause reaction to the right, because like with things like competition and would be created if you have more social and economic investment. A lot of people, they just want to keep. A lot of wanting to keep the same is just people wanting to keep power, and that's not. I don't that.
Yeah, I
think you can't have a system where you keep
politics.
I mean, you want change, even if you're wealthy, because it's good for you. Society change. You're in society. When society advances, you benefit from that.
Hold on. I'll put it this way. So the average person in like West Virginia who's voting Republican or voting conservative, these aren't the people who are benefiting from, major corporations donating to people so they can get massive tax cuts. I mean, you look at the United States, what are wars fought over, or political wars? It's all cultural war bullshit. It's all abortion, guns, God, trans, PC culture, cancel culture. It's all the fucking shit. I mean, Gotta learn to just see that and ignore it. Start reading news that gets more to the point, man. Because if you're reading anything that's talking about fucking all that kind of shit, the only thing they care about is clicks on their fucking site, man. That is it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's good for society to change. I mean, I get, like, you're wealthy, you want to hang on to power, you know what I mean? But if somebody comes and they move up and they they boot you out, you have room to grow into other things. You know what I mean? You have you have if you have a more diversified society and people and a lot of other avenues would be opening up. It's good,
I'll postulate
people
this to
wanting
you,
things to not
Nivek.
change isn't.
Hold on, I'll postulate this to you, Nivek. Whether people want things to change or not, that is exactly where the world is going, dude. In like 500 years, it's. Do you really think people are gonna go back to their like isolated fucking enclave? Like that's the world's gonna. No, dude. Like we are already at the point where the biggest band in the United States is BTS. I mean, like that wall has broken. It's just started and it's not going away. There's no matter how many kids you have trying to plug their fingers in a dam, you're not stopping what's happening. That dam is coming down. And that's, to me, I guess I don't with just understanding that and just looking at like history, I don't have anything to worry
What's
about.
that, globalization?
Yeah, globalization. Yep. I mean that's something that conservatives used to be for, and then all of a sudden, the past like 6 years, are anti-globalization.
Bingo,
You know,
bingo. It was
that's
okay when they with their colonialism, imperialism, but when now people are
well,
connected.
Well, the thing is, it's like it comes down to that culture war shit again. Like all of a sudden, somebody came up with this idea of culture war. Conservatives talk about now. That's in America, at least. That's what else? Have you seen any conservative talk about policy in the last fucking 15 years?
It's all
United
culture.
States. It's all culture war shit.
People
I hear
often
you.
make the argument, "Oh, colonialism, imperialism is so bad." And that argument is made with the extreme ignorance of the stage of human society before colonization. And like as atrocious as empire building is, it does effectively get the world working together when there was an extreme absence of it. And the British Empire was large and dominated the world to such a degree that the leading language of business is English. That facilitates so much trade and interaction on a global scale that like it's impossible to actually conceive of. There's a reason in China and Korea and Japan they push learning English because English is the only language where all the world's works are translated into it. Like so, like some of the first papers on nuclear physics were written in Afrikaans here in South Africa, at the University of Stellenbosch. But you don't need to learn Afrikaans to go read those papers. You can just read the English translation thereof, and that's done with like everything globally. So yeah, on one hand, British colonialism bad. On the other hand, it's very much like the substructure to the amazing civilization we've built.
There's a Roman Renaissance that modernized Europe.
There's here's the thing to it. It's this idea of hindsight, and with hindsight, we can look back and be like, oh, we shouldn't have done that. You know what? To me, that's why I'm agreeing with deniability. I think that is as useful as an asshole on your elbow. It doesn't get you anywhere, But like, of course, we could look back and said, "Oh, what people did 2,000 years ago. Yeah, that was terrible. They should have done it." that doesn't do anything for us now. We're not in progress like having that conversation.
It was a Roman Renaissance that modernized Europe. That helped that it set the trend for a lot of other things with the ship building of the ships and it expanding the way it did.
I mean,
like that's what the conservative mindset wasn't for that. Was anti what Roman Renaissance was.
Yeah, but it was specifically the Mongol Empire that arguably changed world history the most, because the old relations of the Roman, Persian, and Chinese empires facilitating trade was inefficient. The Mongols came and just dominated everything and properly secured the Silk Road, and that's how cannon and all the gunpowder weaponry got to the west, and then that was later used for the British to colonize the rest of the world. These empires might be bloody, but if you look at the context of what we had before any of these empires existed, I can't see how we come close to achieving anything we have today. So, as brutal as they were, in some sense, they're arguably a very necessary step towards global unity. I mean, look at World War One and World War Two. The response and the desire for global peace after World War One and World War Two was phenomenal.
Yeah, so I think you do have those effects from those kind of things, but I don't necessarily agree with the idea that we could have got there otherwise. And I'll cede your point that might have been many years in the future that we got there, but I think we would have got there nonetheless. But I do agree with you on the point where I don't know, just having that sort of destruction that people live through, like, oh yeah, we don't want to until it's been a long enough time and people haven't felt that, and then like, okay, I guess this again, and we do it again, and people are like, okay, we shouldn't do that again. Which unfortunately seems like what we're going in right now, because I think a lot of countries start doing stupid shit. That's going to make things
a lot there.
God.
Yeah, you are.
Okay, I'll be back.
You Americans and your first world
internet. Dude, I actually have. I'm on a computer because I actually have 1 gig up, 1 gig down fiber, so I should not have any fucking issues at all.
I have 200 kilobytes up and like 1 megabyte down on my 3G.
See, I'm also going through a VPN for my work computer right now, though, so I think that's. Let me kill that off. I'm going to reboot. I'll be back.
When did they start using gunpowder? The Mongols?
It wasn't the Mongols that invented gunpowder. It was the Chinese. That what happened was.
I thought they were the same thing.
No. So yes and no. That modern China was formed under Kublai Khan, and he was the grandson of Genghis Khan, the original bad boy of the Mongol Empire, the OG, as it were. So in a way, yes, but back in those times, it was the I believe the Sung Empire that had the secret art of gunpowder, but they had largely kept it to themselves, and not use it for weaponry. Because I think I don't think they had steel back then, and I think steel or bronze or some sort of thing was a necessary sort of understanding for the engineering of cannon. But so the Chinese had it for a long time, and when the Mongols finally conquered the Tsung, then they got access to the gunpowder, and that was around the same time they were starting to develop their own cannons. And then Genghis Khan took these cannons, and well, not Genghis Khan, I think it was Genghis Khan had died by that point. It was either Ogedai Khan or Kublai Khan. They took these siege weapons and went and pushed westward and demolished the Russian and European armies of the day with these cannon and horse tactics.
Mm. Yeah, they because it was the Renaissance after modernizing Europe is when they started to set sail all over the place in discovery.
You see, that's the thing.
By building ship, and it was that type of ideological mindset of liberal humanism of investing in people, and that's when a lot of inventions came out and new technology came out. You know, by the help of conservatism in a way, because it burnt itself out. You know, with a lot of the witch burning and.
You're getting mistaken there again. Like the whole thing with the sort of Roman Renaissance of Europe was what Rome brought was sewage systems, aqueducts. That's plumbing and sewage being taken care of. Without plumbing and sewage being taken care of, you spend 6 hours a day minimum taking care of that business for your daily needs. With sewage and plumbing, that's probably decreased down to like 20 minutes to 30 minutes. So now you've got another 5.5 hours.
No, man, they came up with like the library. They came up with all types of inventions.
No, yes, but you got
and the printing.
Got to understand that with civilization comes the reduction of your average person's daily effort into supplying your daily needs. So if you can get water out of a tap, you can take a shit in the toilet. You've got heat.
Their
You've got
ideology changed. It was more like valuing human beings and saying you should more invest in like educating, and people.
You can't consider these things if 90% of your waking time is committed to keeping yourself alive in a survival situation. If you live in a city like the Romans brought with aqueducts and sewage systems, you would not have to spend the overwhelming majority of your waking hours providing for your daily requirements. You could now maybe spend 30% of your waking hours providing for your daily requirements, and the other 70% is now freed up to commit to developing a skill, a profession. Is from precisely reducing the time required to provide for one's daily needs that we have freed up human creativity to move society forward.
And they're educated; they can read like nobody else could read in Europe.
You have to learn to read, which requires time. And that requires that you're not spending your time foraging for food, sorting out shelter, dealing with your waste, getting water and nutrition. Like that, if you make that easy to do, then people are freed up to be artists and physicists and school teachers and set up libraries and education systems, because all that stuff requires time. So we all need to get over the hurdle of providing for our daily needs so that we can commit time to doing something that might move society forward.
Yeah, their ideology was of humanism, of instead of like a order hierarchy type of mind. It's kind of like people have potential and you should educate people and they should read and they should
You'll never
learn
not have there will always be a hierarchy. Hierarchies are endemic to social animals.
and they always fall too.
No, they don't. That's what I've been trying to explain to you for the last.
No, you don't stay. There's always somebody that comes up. Nobody lasts forever.
Yeah, but that's what you have in a free hierarchy. You have free flow, so there's no
Yeah.
need for violent revolution. There's no need to overthrow the hierarchy because the hierarchy
No, that's
allows
part of
for
evolution, man.
movement up
That's
and
part of
down.
evolution. And that's not bad either, because if somebody's better than you, they can provide to society, and you should just deal with it, and you should move into something else, because they're gonna bring to society that also benefits you too.
And how
And
do
when
you
you
think
have
we provide?
progress, let me finish. When you have progress, many more or avenues open. So it's a good thing. It's not just about being individual. It's about investing in equality of the mass. And when you have people move upward, they topple you. It's not a bad thing, because a lot of people are going to progress. There's going to be a lot of more innovation. Society's going to advance, and you're in society. You're a member of society. You're going to benefit from that too. You're going to benefit from more technological innovations, and more avenues open. A lot of more avenues are open now than there were in the past. So people are fearing, wanting to hold on to power. Just you're deluding yourself. You know what I mean? Let stop trying
Nivek,
to not
who's
have
trying to hold on
society
to power?
progress forward. People,
Nivek,
they don't want society to progress because they want to keep things the way they are, because they're
no,
wealthy, and they
no,
have power.
no, Nivek, have you heard of the three cogs to three
Huh?
cog rule? Have you heard of the three cog to three cog rule?
No.
I might be might be misremembering the name of the rule, but basically, it's something that has emerged out of capitalistic societies and free societies, that you cannot keep intergenerational wealth for longer than 3 generations in the overwhelming majority of cases. It is the exception that a family is able to maintain wealth in a capitalist society across more than 3 generations. The overwhelming majority, like 95% plus, in a free capitalist society, cannot maintain wealth past 3 generations. That is to say that if you are a billionaire, your son will most likely have a good life, but your grandson will most likely have a good life, but spend all the money, and then your great grandson will have nothing, and we'll have to start from zero again. That seems to be
So
what happens most of the time in a free democratic capitalist society. This is what I'm talking about. You have free flow in the hierarchy. Yes, the rich get rich and the poor get poorer, but overall wealth increases, and it's not the same rich getting rich, and it's not the same poor getting poor.
I do think. Can you guys actually hear me now? Am I coming through? Am I
Yes,
cutting out?
no, that's
I
much
hear
better.
you.
Yes, so I do think with that deniability, I don't know if you have looked into specific laws that South Dakota has passed. So basically, South Dakota has put all these laws in a place since about like the late 90s that allow rich people to just transfer money there, and they can put money into trusts, and those trusts never get taxed. So basically, like South Dakota is, they've turned themselves into sort of like the Switzerland of the United States, where they
I
are.
think it's I think it's fantastic. Death
So
taxes are immoral.
that's terrible though, because then if you're talking about a capitalist economy or a capitalist society where a family could only keep wealth for 3 generations, basically what happens when you do this is you make an entrenched family. Like these people, if they can just keep making a percentage of returns based on whatever the rate is at any given time without ever having to pay taxes, that money never goes away.
No,
You're
That
steal.
is
You're
hold
stealing.
on,
You're stealing
hold
from
on.
society if you don't
Wait,
pay
no, no,
taxes.
hold on. Let's take a massive step back here, right? When people are talking about trusts that aren't taxed, they're only talking about death tax. That is the only thing they're talking about. What death tax is when I die, even though the entire time I've lived, I've
yep,
paid income tax on everything I've made. I've paid capital gains tax on all my assets that I've bought and sold.
yep.
I've paid value
How
added
many?
tax on everything that I've consumed in the economy. I paid sin tax on the petrol and the alcohol and the cigarettes.
So that's the thing. I
even
think
after all
things
that
are.
taxation, what I have left over when I die, for some reason, gets taxed 20%. That's fucking bullshit.
No, so it's the taxes. The tax isn't from you dying. The tax is from the person taking that wealth. Just like any time, any sort of transfer of wealth should take place, there's got to be a tax on it because this is something that we've realized over a long period of time that we understand that if we don't do this, like wealth just accumulates and it becomes this untenable situation.
So
Because like
what I was referring
so
to,
well,
yeah,
you're because you're referring to what in the United States what's called the estate tax, but conservatives label it as the death tax. So last year, or maybe it was the year before, 3.1 million people died. Do you know how many people paid an estate tax or a death tax? Roughly,
I don't know.
how much do you think, just roughly?
I know there's a certain threshold that you have to be above before you incur estate tax, but
Yeah,
it doesn't make it
was
less
about
immoral.
1,000. Yeah, it was about 1,000.
How much
So
money was gained out of that 1,000 though?
like 6 million.
And that's pennies to you?
And
No, morally right for us to take from those who are dead?
Oh no, just like if you're taking a transfer to you, just like if you put money into a stock and then that stock paid out, that transfer of money is coming into you, you should be paying taxes.
It doesn't matter. The taxes on wealth are not fair or moral, especially when someone's died as a part of their estate. Picking and choosing people, that's a moral issue if you ask me.
You pay tax on profits.
It's not a wealth. It's on the transfer.
No,
and that's the thing.
You said an estate tax, which is based on wealth.
Once you transfer, an estate tax is based off that wealth being transferred to the people that you gave that money to. Because you're dead.
Just
you're not
because
paying
you
that tax
transfer
anymore. It's
wealth,
the people who inherited that money.
The estate pays it, which is unfair. Yeah, it's unfair.
No, it's not unfair.
It's being taxed in two directions, man. Twice.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Scott, it's after-tax money. You've already paid all your dues on that money.
And it's paid again,
the government
dude. That's
has
kind of crazy, man.
The government has no claim at that point.
No, because that money is in interest accruing accounts.
You can say you're okay with it, but it's still being taxed twice.
It's not being taxed twice. And I know this argument because this argument goes back to when I was in college, and it came back to this very thing, and it was this idea of like any time a corporation has to pay taxes, and then you get taxed on your investment into that corporation. This is the argument people were making back then. It's like, oh, you're paying twice on it. That's not true. That's because what's happening is through your investment, you're actually adding value to what you invested. And that's where the tax part comes in. Like you have to put in your share because you are taking part in this. You are taking part in this system that's been built. This system doesn't just exist.
You get that this is leverage. This is leverage across all your wealth, Scott.
Like, this is much different than capital gains. And even capital gains is borderline a problem.
So let me put a solution.
But I think
Scott, hold on.
I'm
let me put
totally
this to you.
Separate. I think labor should not be taxed in fucking capital gains. That's where we should be making our tax money from. Because taxes you're actually putting money. You're actually creating wealth into the society. As where capital gains, you're just fucking juicing the system. You're
not juicing the system though. The capital gains are being used to make more gains. You see, it's like it's a system. That is a system as well as the system you're referencing. There are two systems at play here.
Quote unquote,
you know what I mean?
It's being used.
I think I know what Scott's saying. Scott's saying wealth is being redistributed.
Hold on, quote unquote, it's used to be making more gains. But more often than not, even when we saw when Trump did his tax break, what did companies do? Companies did splits. Companies did all these buybacks and like all this kind of stuff where they made no investment in any sort of production. there was nothing that was produced extra out of that money that they received back, other than the money going to the people at the top.
Scott, so you're talking
happened.
about a redistribution of wealth versus generating wealth, as in creating wealth.
I just think we need to I think we need
understand
to put
where you're
maybe
coming
certain
from, man.
rules on this kind of behavior.
Yeah, but how do you value labor over risk?
Well, it's not risk. These guys are not taking
but
risks.
it's still risk regardless.
They've
then you're making a judgment claim about but fundamentally though, it's still a risk.
You fundamentally it is, but it's not a risk like playing the stock market or
wealth.
Playing.
Then you're starting to just split hairs on what's risk.
Wealth is society progressing forward. Is society advancing, and you want that to happen. You want you don't want like a redistribution type of of wealth from one money one place to the other. You wanna.
It's more of the moral question of taxing a state, man, which I would say is immoral.
But I think there are moral questions on the other side of what people are doing.
Scott,
how do you possibly address that without having taxes? So I mean, if that's what I want to challenge you on. Open,
so go ahead. Let's let deniability get in.
Go ahead.
You're presuming this estate tax has precipitated this phenomenon of the 3-generation rule, and it hasn't. Like the phenomenon. The phenomenon of the 3-generation rule is like people born into wealth and comfort. They just fail to, or not always fail, but it seems to be incredibly difficult for people born into wealth to acquire the characteristics to become successful in life.
On their morals.
They can do it minimally, but like compared to someone born in the lower classes. Someone born in the lower classes is going to know what it's like to have to work, to fight, and to survive, and they're going to be hardened to the requirements for success. So it's not because of this 20% estate tax on the super wealthy that all these families are losing their wealth. Yeah. It's because they are providing progeny that are proving incompetent at keeping and growing the wealth.
See, I mean, because you can just take a look at the Rockefeller family. I mean, how many Rockefellers have you heard have done anything great?
My view of wealth is innovation.
The amount of money that they have, that family is never. They're going to be rich for fucking ever. All they have to do is just.
What is wrong with that exactly?
The problem is
my idea of wealth is innovation and technological innovation advancing society.
Because if we're talking about if we live in a meritocracy, and somebody is not doesn't have any merit, but they're just rich. How is that any different than an aristocracy?
They'll lose their money. They'll lose their money if they spend it poorly in consumption tax.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are, mate. If you manage it poorly, you're gonna lose it, man.
Actually, a lot of generational wealth is lost, man.
Yeah,
a lot of generational wealth is lost.
I don't think Scott was saying anything antithetical to that.
Yeah, he was saying it's not fair that people don't work for their money when it's like an aristocracy, meaning they just sit around and sit on the money they were given to. In other words, how is it fair they're not contributing to the system, just getting money?
Scott, why don't you clarify your claim?
Then what are you saying? Because that's what it sounds like.
I wasn't saying it's not fair. See, I just don't have this same opinion about taxes that you guys seem to have, where you think taxes are immoral. I don't. That's just not the case. I mean, what Ben Franklin said, there's two things that are certain in life: death and taxes. I mean, these ideas are not completely out of the norm of an understanding of any situation. Just like if you lived in a tribe, the work that you would do, you would have to contribute a certain amount of work to the tribe's good, even though you would still do certain work for yourself. And that's just the case in any society. And this notion that we should just be able to separate and just be ourselves. Well, I mean, if you want to get rid of everything, if you don't want to use fucking anything that society has contributed over the last 2,000 years, and you want to go out there and try to make it, dude, fucking more power to you. But I don't think that's the case. And I
but you can't start going like down the line of like nothing is yours because you've never actually created thing zero.
No,
because of thing zero, we owe taxes. Like they can't go down that road.
No, I don't agree with that at all.
I mean, if your parents leave you home and leave you, like if your parents do well and they leave you lots of things, that's a net benefit for society, not a net negative. So they shouldn't be criminalized, taxed, or imposed upon because of that.
Those people are not getting hit with an estate tax, Bruce. Like of 3.1 million people that died like 2 years ago, 1,000 people got hit with an estate tax, and that's
not
like,
ideal.
I mean, like you have to understand the amount of wealth in this country that you would even have to even get hit with anything.
I don't see it. I don't see the outlier scenario of someone making $3 and passing it on in $3 trillion. The idea of putting a threshold based on the wealth they accrue is immoral.
Oh, I don't.
Investing in.
Fair.
I don't think so.
It makes no sense, man.
The wealth they accrue.
Investing in people's benefit for society.
Hold on. The wealth they accrued is fundamentally a part of the society that has been built that allowed them to build that.
Doesn't mean they owe money that their parents didn't pay on something that were given to them. That's crazy.
They do. Just
you understand where that ends, right? You know where that ends, right? Extend that to other aspects of society. Extend it.
Investing in other people, they
extend that logic.
I'm telling you, they invest in other people. They innovate and they come up with new ideas and you know wealth is creativity. It's not just a pile of cash. You know that's why.
Go ahead, Bruno.
I just wanted to know.
That's why E pluribus unum's on the dollar.
Just 1 sec, Nivik.
What is it? Is it we're talking about taxes and if the rich should be taxed? Is it or
See, I'm not necessarily saying the rich. I'm saying I'm talking about certain aspects where we could tax people different. I don't think there's any fucking reason in the goddamn world somebody who's working to make their money should be paying a higher percentage of taxes than somebody who's just investing to make their money. That's not
bonkers. Fair, man. No, that's not
fair
at all.
It's 100% fair.
Why is labor more important? That's crazy. You're making a distinction based on arbitrary measure.
No, it's not arbitrary because labor is the fundamental building.
Yeah, see, this is where we part ways, man. I'm not going to go down that road because now we're into death camps and people that aren't putting their fair share forward and being killed because they're not working right.
No, dude.
That's the end goal of that. That's not the individual. That's the group.
Dude. No,
that's the group, dude.
No, dude.
You're gonna be. How do you then? It's a group struggle against who worked harder than the other one, man.
Hold on. Value is fundamentally built out of labor. It's about people putting in work to create something.
It's worth what people are willing to buy, dude. Value is based on what we're willing to take out of it.
Well, you could have a million Steve Jobs with nobody actually to make what they're fucking trying to design, and you've got nothing, and that's the point. Why should the people who are actually building the products pay a higher percentage? It's
Bruno,
ridiculous.
Bruno, you had a point, and then I would really like to get James's take because he's been listening.
And me afterwards.
Bruno, what did you have? 1 million people to work and no one with the idea. So
yeah. But that doesn't change the fact that if those people didn't work, it wouldn't get done, and that's the fun.
Yeah, and if you didn't have the guy with the idea, it wouldn't get done either.
I just want to add:
you invest in a group, people move up, move upward.
2 seconds there, Nivik. We'll get you back, buddy. Let's go to Mr. Jimothy. What do you think of this conversation about taxes? Taxes.
Taxes are necessary, yes. But I would sit here and say that typically speaking, I would keep taxes as low as possible because I would want to promote spending. So even under that, right, a capital gains tax, I would want to keep that as low as possible. I can see why we would maybe do it, but I don't necessarily like. Again, my narrative here is keep it low, so that people can use more of that money that they get to spending and generating opportunities. Whether it is going to the strip club because they don't know how to generate more wealth, or starting their own business.
Can I say something?
I support that.
Go ahead, Nivik.
When you invest in a group, you
wait a sec,
have
Nivik.
people-
Nivik, you have to promise me it's about what James just said. You have to.
No,
promise
he's talking
me.
about it's about the individual and not the group. But I'm saying that they're both connected.
Okay.
Because you have people move up in a group and overthrow a person on the top. That's why you invest in equality of opportunity of people moving upward and more. Ideas. That's for new ideas and new perspectives. New innovation. You have society advance. It's not a pile of money, and you need those. You need that cycle to you need to have that cycle for society to move forward. You can't just because a lot of times people just fix society in a way where they just keep all the money and try to have
and we're back. No, I'm just
Okay.
kidding, Nivik. That was a good run you had there, buddy. There was a lot of information. I just need a second to digest it all.
Nivik,
and also,
Nivik, you should open up your own theme park. Roller coasters you have.
Nivik, turn your Nivik, if you have a camera, turn your camera on. Then that makes you more of a man than deniability.
It's not going to work. It's not going to work. You're not going to be able to bait me into this.
That is true.
But you have to have glasses.
Well, to me, Bruce, my only difference is how we go about taxing, and that's.
Yeah, but I'm just saying you can't make arbitrary distinctions on what somebody's labor is worth, depending on the labor they do.
But those arbitrary distinctions are already being made on what somebody's worth is putting
it's not arbitrary.
$10 towards Bitcoin. People.
But that's not arbitrary. That's a value judgment that people are choosing. That's not arbitrary. That's the market choosing what is valuable. If you apply value to something arbitrarily, then you fix the market based on what you think labor is worth by applying it, whereas the market withdraws what labor is worth.
No, that's what I'm saying, because a tax rate has been put on capital gains, and that is arbitrary. That is it's been pushed to a point because it used to be way higher. And the idea was okay, let's lower the tax rate on capital gains, because the notion was we're going to get people to spend more money into companies. They have more money to invest, more money to build the economy. But if you see companies all of a sudden doing buybacks after taking an influx of money, I think there are very serious fucking concerns to be had at that point.
What do you mean buybacks?
Because so what companies will do is they'll buy back their stocks. So after it goes up, they buy back their stock, and it can ramp up the price even more. And what it does is it's a specific thing that CEOs do, because CEOs pay is based off of their market value. So CEOs will go through amount of time, and then what they're going to do is do these buyback pushes right when it's at their 5-year mark, when they're going to benefit from that stock option, and then boom, they're good, and they make
you get paid $1 as a CEO,
so you can make dollars.
So you can make money off the stocks. That's how you do it. And
Yeah.
you don't pay as many taxes. You rather pay the stock gains. The problem is if you raise the capital gains, you know what the actual result that you see in every time you raise capital gains? You see more donations, you see more charity, actually, because they're trying to counter the taxes off capital gains. The other thing you see actually as well is international plays. So you'll start seeing stuff start heading off to the Caribbean real quick, because the international capital gains, right, are a little bit lower than the actual capital gains. Like I said, we were waiting. When we were trying to form some companies, we were waiting to see how the international taxation was going to work, because it really depended on where we were going to place our company. But what is interesting, like I said, is that every time you see capital gains become an issue, the company realizes that they had their philanthropy side has to increase more.
Usually.
A lot of them don't want to do that. A lot of them don't want the philanthropic method. They don't like the philanthropic method, but it is actually the right way to go.
Mm-hmm. I find that does the incentive. The tax incentive is what people usually try and talk about when they're talking about that. They're saying we need tax incentives, and so that is a tax incentive, but it's not enough. Like we can't tax our way into altruism. That's not going to work.
So here's the thing about that whole scenario: is in South Africa, the capital gains tax is all the way up to 40%, and what it does is it creates a massive
That's a bit high.
Yeah, look at them versus the United States.
It's
what do you think?
50%. Jesus Christ!
It's 50% of capital gains are taxable.
Yeah, this is why people know. This is why no one wants to go there.
Yeah, and we're borrowing money at like 10 to 12% interest rates as well.
I'm not starting a company there.
Yeah,
I wouldn't raise a bird there.
Fucking great white shark market. Fuck that noise.
Yeah, I wouldn't raise I wouldn't give a business to my dog there.
The government needs it for all the mosquito repellent.
Fuck.
This was discussed in Davos when they were talking. It's
like going public in China.
But the net effect on the business market in South Africa is instead of companies seeking to grow and expand and build upon their success, they look for the most efficient routes to extract wealth and skip capital gains tax, and it results in, instead of the wealthy reinvesting back into the economy and expanding businesses and creating more opportunities, they extract wealth to places like the Caribbean islands and Mauritius. They pay a comfortable 2% tax rate, and then they just hoard that wealth into luxury estates, and it becomes useless.
Aren't they looking to stop that?
It's because it's overtaxation. That's obvious. It's overtaxation at 45%. I mean, that's
45%.
That's before anything else too.
It is a scale from 14 to 40, but still, like minimally.
What's the 45?
No,
what's the 45 come in? Fucking investing in drugs. What's the 45?
I think I said 40. I don't know, but like 15 to 40.
14 to 40 is what he said.
Yeah, 14 if it's a school. 40% if it's a fucking cocaine shipment across the fucking South African
in
desert.
Canada, 50% of the value of any capital gains are taxable. Should you sell the investments at a higher price than you paid realized capital gain, you'll need to add 50% of the capital gain to your income.
Yeah.
What incentive does that have for people to continue that?
So there's
completely
pleasure.
Right.
Hold on.
It creates hiding. Yeah, James is right. Go ahead.
So you apply your capital gain. So, for example, if I were to get a gain from, like, let's just say, the stock market, right? I can take that and I don't think this is exactly accurate, but I'm just using this phrase. I can take that and hide that capital gain in the housing market by buying a house. Technically, the laws will sit there. I know for North Carolina, like if I wait 30 days, for example, after I sell that house, then it's taxable. So I have to sit there and immediately find another house to sink that money into. And that doesn't help the economy either. So you want to have a lower capital gains in order to keep people from hiding those things.
Yeah.
So it's not hiding. It's specifically asset trading, because capital gains is.
Well, yeah. I mean, and there's benefit to that too, because now I have more money, and like, I mean, there is benefit to that too. But like, at the end of the day, like, if I were to make a choice, like as I was saying earlier, low taxes across the board, so that way people can do those things. I mean, you can say, like, for example, if I sell this house and I make a $20,000 profit on it, that you're not going to tax it, or you're going to tax it regardless. But at the end of the day, like, there's always loopholes around these things.
Yeah, but let's say they take your 20,000 and then you do something with it with consumption. You're paying tax on the consumption, which is where a lot of taxes come in. And now the federal taxes, there is no consumption tax. But I imagine I actually would be in favor of a federal sales consumption tax versus what we currently have. I think we'd make more money actually, and you wouldn't lose anything from illegals.
See, the only problem I have with that.
Here's what's coming down the pipe. Go ahead, sir.
I was going to say the only problem I have with that is people on the lower scale of the income bracket spend a higher percentage of their money in buying things and consuming things, as where people in the higher scale spend a less amount of money. So right off the bat, you would have a higher tax percentage going to people that, like I said again, like throughout the entire system, what allows the people to make that higher amount of money is the system we have in place. And like, so if you have that in place, like, so all of a sudden take away any sort of corporate law that's been set up in the United States in the past 200 years and try to just like develop a system from scratch. Like, so to even get into the system, you're buying into the system, you know, to even start to be in a position where you want to like accumulate wealth. You're buying into the system of the United States.
I mean, like you're talking about just generally making money and making systems that make money, right?
Yep.
So those are businesses at the end of the day, and those businesses have to be profitable in order for wealth to accrue. Right.
Also, we have to have like certain contract laws where people can be assured of, if I do this, that, and the other thing with this other person, sign a contract, that there's going to be some sort of force that's going to be applied to them that that can make them apply to that contract that we signed. Because if you don't have,
where did that